Guys, we're here to talk about Best Drama Supporting Actress at the Emmys. We've all watched the episodes, and now we're all going to weigh in with what and who we think has the best shot to take home the hardware. So I'll just run through the nominees in case you've forgotten, which if you have, then what the hell are you watching this for? Anna Gunn, Breaking Bad; Christine Baranski, The Good Wife; Joanne Froggatt, Downton Abbey; Lena Headey, Game of Thrones; Maggie Smith, Downton Abbey; and Christina Hendricks for Mad Men. Pretty solid group of actresses. Let's. I'll just go one by one, and how about you just give me your ranking? I'm not expecting to have much of a difference in the top position, but let's just see if we can come up with some surprises. I'll go to Charlie first. Charlie, who do you have? What are your six?
Okay, well, I have Anna Gunn in first place for Breaking Bad for her submitted episode Ozymandias, followed by Maggie Smith, Christine Baranski, Joanne Froggatt, Lena Headey, and Christina Hendricks.
Okay, Daniel.
I've got Anna Gunn in my number one position, followed by Christine Baranski at number two, Maggie Smith number three, Joanne Froggatt number four, Lena Headey number five, and Christina Hendricks number six.
Marcus?
I have Anna Gunn in first place, and then I didn't even fill out the rest of my ballot because it really is Anna Gunn's Emmy to lose. But no, and second place, actually, I have Joanne Froggatt. I think she has a really, really good episode. I think you're crazy, Daniel, for putting her in fourth, but we'll probably talk about that more a little bit later. Third place, I have Maggie Smith. Fourth place, Christine Baranski. Fifth place, Lena Headey. And then sixth place is Christina Hendricks.
Yeah. Matt?
I've got first place, Anna Gunn. Second place, Christine Baranski. Third place, Maggie Smith. Fourth place, Joanne Froggatt. Fifth place, Christina Hendricks. And sixth place, Lena Headey.
Okay, that's interesting coming from you, Matt. I think you are the most knowledgeable about Game of Thrones, and you think Lena Headey's at the bottom. Let's talk about that first, because we'll talk about Anna Gunn in a moment, but I just want to hear from what you all think are the women at the bottom. At the moment, you're saying Lena Headey is down the end. Matt, why do you think that she, did she have a better episode than what she submitted, just out of interest?
She submitted an okay tape. It was The Lion and the Rose. It's Joffrey's wedding. She has her son die in her arms. Very impactful sort of moment, but it is quite short. You have to sit through a lot to get it. It's not some big monologue-y speech where you sit through it and you might get it from a Peter Dinklage, which could be better. And it's just like, I think it's always with these fantasy it's shows. It's not heaps accessible. I think it's gonna, for a Game of Thrones actor to win it, take something pretty big. Like we saw Emilia Clarke last year with a much bigger, showier sort of scene, not able to take down Anna Gunn. So it's just more the type of show. And it's really, I think, her and Christina Hendricks at the bottom. And I just think Christina Hendricks has a bit more of a sort of like, she's more overdue. She's had more nominations under her belt. So there's a bit more track record to go on the acting branch, like in Christina Hendricks. And it's maybe a bit more of an Academy show. It's a 4-time drama series winner. So, but Lena Headey, she's got that money scene right at the very end, but it is very short, and not sure whether it's enough to really topple a front runner.
What about you, Marcus? What did you think about Lena Headey? Did you were you a bit more impressed than what Matt was? Comparatively speaking, with all the others.
Yes, I have her in fifth place. Her son does die in her arms, and that's huge. And before that, she has a scene where she's being the queen bitch of Westeros. She's telling some guy, I don't know his name, I don't know any of their names, by the way, but she's telling this guy that after the wedding, she wants all of the food to go to the dogs, and instead of all the poor people in town. She's so unlikable in a good way. Like, you love to hate this woman. But I don't think the Emmys are going to give it to someone that is just so evil and so hard to watch sometimes. Even though you do feel sorry for her at the end when Joffrey dies, you also feel like, oh, she deserved that because she's such a bitch.
Yeah.
But the episode she submitted is called The Lion and the Rose. In case people don't know, they can go watch that one.
Yeah. I'll jump in. I put Hetty in fourth, and that is because I was actually really impressed with that final scene. I mean, she just tore it apart. She just was so upset about Joffrey's death, and she can't wait to accuse her imp brother of the crime. She is a horrible witch of a character, and we do love to hate her. And I was kind of impressed with her. I just had thought that the problem was you have to wade through a lot of this episode to get to that really good juicy stuff at the end, and that one will be at her disadvantage. What about you, Daniel? What did you think about Lena Headey?
I agree with what has said already. That last scene is really terrific for her when Joffrey is dead and she looks at Tyrion, and she's screaming at the guards, take him, over and over again. That's a really, really terrific moment for her, and it's definitely the money shot of the episode. It's definitely her money scene, but it's not. I mean, that's really all that there is that where she gets to really flex those acting muscles. The other scene she's in, she's being a little bit catty, a little bit, vindictive, not in a big, grandiose kind of way that the Emmys might love to hate her. It's just a little bit petty, and it's not the actress's fault. It's just the material in this episode until that last moment. It's not quite. There's not quite enough of it.
Charlie, what did you think of Lena?
I actually just rewatched the episode very recently, and I forgot how long you had to wait to get to actually see her. And the first time you see her, she's not really saying that much. And boy, at the end, yeah, it does finally pay off. But it's so much to get through, especially if you're someone, if you're on the voting panel and you're not someone who regularly watches Game of Thrones, you're going to be going through a lot of stuff that you don't understand, and that's definitely something that's working against her at this point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think there's a similar problem for Christina Hendricks, who I actually have in sixth place. I haven't gone through my list. I have Gunn in first, Baranski in second, Froggatt, then Headey, then Smith, then Hendricks. And the reason why I have Hendricks down the bottom is, and by the way, she submitted the episode The Strategy, which is the second to last episode of the truncated first part of this final season of Mad Men. Firstly, I think the voters must really love her because, comparatively speaking to other seasons, I don't think she had a lot to do this time. And yet she was able to get herself into this category again. It was a very competitive category. There were a lot of actresses who obviously did not make it in. She doesn't have a lot to do, but when she is on screen, especially towards the end where she's being proposed to by Bob Benson, it's actually quite good. And but I still have her in sixth only because I thought the other five had more to do. Anybody want to jump in and talk about Christina Hendricks? How about Matt?
Who was really good in this episode was Elizabeth Moss. And if she had gone, one of these years, the show's almost over, but one of these years she really needs to step down to supporting because she's not the lead of the show. And if she had been nominated or if she had entered as supporting, she probably would have got nominated, and this would have been a great episode for her. She cries, she dances with Don Draper at the end. I'm struggling to remember what Christina Hendricks did in this episode, and I just watched it 2 days ago, so that's a big problem.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything? Yeah, go for it, Matt.
I think it's a nice scene. She's a lot more likable than Lena Headey. And what I will say about Christina Hendricks is, we might say it's probably not the winning tape, but I think this is probably the best episode she had this season. I think she chose, she might be low on our list, but she chose well. And it's just I think if she wins, it'll be overdue. It'll be that she's likable in the episode, and it might mean that voters aren't using tapes as the sole way to decide winners on this panel. So I think she's in with a shot, but boy, and Mad Men actors have struggled with their tapes to win. It hasn't struck a chord with the acting branch, the Mad Men writing style or performance style. Yeah.
Charlie, how many have they lost? You know the number, right?
I believe it's 31 at this point. They have lost acting nominations, all of their acting nominations, and if it continues this year, it will be 34.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's
For a
really
show that's won
sad.
drama series 4 times.
It just doesn't actually make much sense. But it just
one thing
the way it's panned out.
The only thing I will say about Christina Hendricks and her performance in this is that great scene she has towards the end where Bob Benson is proposing to her, saying, you'll be free to live your own life, and I'll be a father figure for your son. Her reaction to it, considering the year is 1969 when this is happening, her reaction is really refreshing, and I think that might play that will definitely could be a positive for some Academy voters. But then I'm just thinking also some other Academy voters might think that reaction she has is not very realistic for someone in 1969. Yeah. Considering that Bob Benson is gay and saying, "Hey, let's have this arrangement."
Yeah. She just wants love. She just wants a bit of love, Charlie. Just wants to
and
find
she,
love.
well, she, well, it's not just that. It's that she also wants him to have true love as well. That's the unrealistic part.
I think her best scene in this episode was toward the end when, after all of the partners have a meeting and they're talking about giving somebody a partnership. I can't remember what his name is, but she votes against it and she goes and yells at Roger Sterling. I don't want him to be partner. That was her best scene where she kind of starts screaming and yelling, but it was too short.
Yeah.
And it's Harry Crane, the loser of the group, who they were promoting.
The Charlie of the group.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the Downton Abbey ladies. Maggie Smith, she submitted the London season, or episode 8, or whatever you want to call it, the Christmas special, and it's 400 hours long. Joanne Froggatt submitted, I think you can call it in the US, episode 2, which is really episode 3. It's very confusing. It just does our heads in every year. Joanne Froggatt submitted the episode, obviously, where her character is raped, and Maggie Smith submits the finale. I'm going to go to Daniel first because I know, Dan, you said quite early on in the season, way before nominations, that we should all look out for Joanne Froggatt because she had this storyline, and you were right. Talk us through why you don't think either of those two, though, really are competitive alongside Anna Gunn.
Well, this is Downton Abbey is a little bit like Game of Thrones in the sense that the way it's structured, the way the characters are balanced from episode to episode, really doesn't help any of them in terms of submitting an Emmy episode. In Downton Abbey, it's actually more difficult because not only do you have characters split off in different directions and place to place, but every other scene one of these actors is in, they're in the background, they say 1 or 2 lines and then go away, and it's hard to really come up with a good, juicy scene. And Joanne Froggatt, obviously, she does have that. After she's raped and she, she's begging for help and doesn't want to tell her husband about what happened. It's an impactful moment, but I thought the last time she was nominated, she had, her and Maggie Smith together. They had, great episodes for her character, even better than these two for her. And she didn't win then, and it's a very brief scene with the aftermath of her rape. And Maggie Smith won that year anyway, so that's why I'm putting Maggie Smith slightly ahead of her because, all things equal, the name Maggie Smith goes probably farther than we might think. So I think Joanne Froggatt would have needed even more material than she has to overtake, Dame Maggie Smith, let alone Anna Gunn.
Yeah, see, the problem I had with Froggatt was that a lot of it happens off screen, and for most of the episode, there's just, the usual stuff. And then it's that last scene at the end where she's cowering, bruised, in the corner after the ordeal that she's just been through, and it's impactful, but for me it just wasn't enough. Now, Marcus, you just wrote a really great article about that episode, and by the way, we're all writing up articles for all of the episode submissions, so you should all be checking into those so you can, it'll help you make up your minds on how to predict the Emmys in the next couple of weeks. Marcus, what did you think about Joanne Froggatt and Maggie Smith?
Well, to tell you the truth, if Anna Gunn was not in this race, Joanne Froggatt would win. And you guys are crazy for putting her so low down on your lists. She has the emotion, she has the range in this episode, and we always talk about impact scenes. What an impact scene that was. And maybe the attack itself was not all on camera, which is probably a good thing, but the aftermath of it is where she really shined. When she was crying to Mrs. Hughes and when she lies to her husband, there's no way voters will not feel empathy for her, and we know that they love this show. It got way more nominations this year than we thought it would. We kind of say that every year, that it gets more and more love than we thought it would. And she's just so fantastic. I have her easy second place for me. And
Wow.
if Gunn wasn't in this race, it's Froggett's.
Okay. Matt, what did you think of the Downton Ladies?
Yeah, no, I think Froggett's got some good stuff, and I think you know, the scene where the aftermath scene is her real scene. If she wins the Emmy, it will be because of that scene. And last year we saw some very likable characters of maybe not the best take out Emmys in the comedy races. So she's in with the shot for sure. I just do sort of agree that the actual rape scene was quite brief, and sort of I'd heard there was a rape scene in this episode, so I was like, okay, so I had it higher up in my predictions, and I just watched it last night, and I was a bit underwhelmed in the, not only,
Are you saying you wanted more rape? Is that what you're saying?
I was underwhelmed about how small a part of the episode.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree.
Like, it was a long time before we got to that moment. It was sort of, there was other stuff still going on after that moment. It didn't change the gears of the episode in a huge degree. I guess because she was keeping it a secret from so many people. But so I feel like I didn't walk away going, oh, that was a massive Joanne Froggatt episode. I said, oh, she had one good scene, which is it could win her the Emmy. It would be a huge shock because Anna Gunn's so far ahead. But like, she could win the Emmy. But I think Maggie Smith is always going to have people voting for her, and she's always going to get some votes. And if we get a similar makeup of voters that we had 2 years ago on this category, I think it could go to Maggie Smith.
Yeah, it's scary. Charlie, do you have anything further to add to what we've already said about the Downton Ladies?
Well, I have Smith in second place just because, yeah, she is Maggie Smith. I have Froggatt in fourth place. I may need to bump her up to third because the brief scenes she has at the end are really good, and she's really impactful. I think it probably would have served her better to submit one of the episodes further where throughout the whole episode she's dealing with the aftermath. Whereas, throughout most of this episode, she's just kind of, because of the one guy who's there, she's just kind of goofing off, and then this horrible thing happens that is just that you don't even see it, you only hear it, and just to hear her screams are just, it's gut wrenching, and I could definitely see that possibly picking up some votes because of the empathy they'll have for her, but it's just so limited. I think it's probably not going to be a winning episode.
Yeah. Let's talk about Christine Baranski. She submitted The Last Call. For much of the season, many of us thought she would submit Outside the Bubble, which is the episode just before the much heralded Hitting the Fan, where she firstly she's almost going to get married to Gary Cole's character, and then she finds out about Alicia's betrayal, and that was a very, very strong episode for her. But she didn't go that way. She decided to go with The Last Call, which is the episode after the very shocking death of Will Gardner. She gets to grieve and cry and console Alicia. It's good, and I think if there was no Anna Gunn, I would be picking Christine Baranski to finally win on her 5th consecutive nomination for The Good Wife and her 11th overall. She hasn't won an Emmy for 2 decades, since her first one for Sybil. But we've got the Anna Gunn. We've got Anna Gunn in this category, and that is a problem for Christine and the rest of them. And so I think I have Christine in second. Marcus, what did you think about Christine Baranski?
I loved her in this episode. I just wish there was more of her. She was in it a lot in the beginning, grieving over Will's death and missing him, and she cries a lot. And then there's that one scene though that might hurt her chances, and that's where she fires the intern for crying too loudly. And I mean, it's just very, very strange thing that they would have in that episode. I didn't really get that part, but she just seems very unlikable in that scene. And we always talk about, Emmy voters want to give someone a hug, and who do they want to hug? They're not going to want to hug someone that fires a poor little intern.
Yeah.
But she was really good in this episode. I think it was a good choice for her. I don't know if it was a better choice or a worse choice than the one you mentioned, but I'm glad she picked this one.
Matt, what did you think of The Last Call and Christine's performance in it?
I think it was a good performance. I think she's in grief, and we get some of that crying, and then at the end we have a heroic moment where she, sacks a client, and for being insensitive to the whole thing, and sort of goes, and I've spoken to the other law firms, they're not happy with you either, and you're not going to find a top-tier firm to represent you anymore. So I think she had a heroic moment at the end where there's like a little bit of anger in there. She's got the crying at the beginning. And sort of we're talking about Mad Men and their lack of success in the acting categories. Like The Good Wife's almost like a reverse Mad Men, where they haven't had too much luck in the series race. They've never won it. They've gotten nominated only 2 or 3 times. Not a huge thing to sneeze at in itself with such a tough field. But they win acting awards every year. Every year a woman's won for that show. Maybe it's Baranski's turn. And look, it's an emotional episode. And buzz was up this year for The Good Wife. And, there's, I think, a lot of goodwill towards that show, despite it missing out on a drama series nomination. Juliana Margulies made it back into the race. So, look, it could happen. She's overdue as well.
Yeah. Daniel?
I agree it could happen. She's well liked. She's the only member of the cast to have been nominated every year. And this is probably, I don't watch the show regularly, but of the episode submissions I've seen her give in this category, this is her best. And she's good early on. She sort of is the lead in some of those early scenes when she's breaking news to the rest of the firm. And then she sort of, recedes into the background a little bit, but she comes back for that heroic scene that you mentioned, where she dumps the client for being insensitive and sort of asking, well, what about me, while the entire firm is mourning. That's all very good. It's also very subdued. I mean, the nature of this character, she's not prone to fits of hysterics, which is maybe why she fired the intern who can't even get it together, even though she's only been there a week and didn't even really know him, and she's sort of pulling. It's sort of a me moment for that intern. I sort of understood why she fired her, even though I thought it was a bit harsh. But yeah, it's a solid episode. It could win in most years, and it could even win this year. You never know what panel you're going to get. But I wouldn't necessarily count on this level of subtlety being the winner this year.
Charlie?
My thoughts exactly with regards to Christine Baranski. A lot of times she really hasn't, even when she's had good storylines, they haven't had a lot of it, in the episodes, and you haven't had a lot of the impact in there. And so this season she just had a plethora of material, which was wonderful for her character, because I frankly just love Christine Baranski, just as Christine Baranski. I could just watch her, just strut around all day, which is kind of weird, but we're getting off on another subject here.
Wow.
My point is that, yeah, she does have that great scene. That great scene at the end. I was watching that. I remember when that first aired. I had downloaded the episode. I was watching it on the train the next day. I almost started cheering on the DC subway system when she did that. It was so wonderful. And that scene sticks with you, of just like a good for her moment. So it's definitely a strong competitor in this race.
Yeah. Now, okay, enough beating around the bush. Let's get real here, okay? Because we all know that Anna Gunn is so far out in front that it's almost not a contest. And that is because, I'll give you my reasoning and then I'll let you all have your turn. Anna Gunn, she has Ozymandias as a submission. To me, that's the best episode of TV from the season, and perhaps for a very long time. I've seen it now 4 times, and I'm just so amazed by it. Bryan Cranston is incredible in it. She's incredible in it. And that scene in particular, which goes from pretty much when she picks up the knife to when she falls to her knees in the middle of the street is just, it just took my breath away. I can't possibly imagine in what universe any voter could not vote for that. And that's why I have her so far out in front. Matt, I know how much you, and I know the rest of you are the same, but Matt, you love Breaking Bad, right? And you surely, how could she not win this?
Yeah, like Breaking Bad's probably my second favorite drama of all time behind The West Wing. So you know, it's pretty high up there. To Matthew Weiner, ends strong with Mad Men. The last 7 episodes of Mad Men, you could take it out. But look, she's great in that episode. It's a tour de force. There's tears, there's fear, there's intensity. We know she won it last year, so we know that there's not some issue with her character in the Academy. That they've given her an Emmy before. So look, it's all stars are aligning. The show is the front runner to win Best Drama Series. There's so much goodwill still for this show. So it's not it just seems like she just got so many pros in her column. Show they love, amazing performance, past winner. It's just going to be very hard to beat her, especially when we know, and we got this confirmed this year from the Academy, the voting process where they rank them 1 to 6, and you get the scores. You get like sort of 1 if you score first, 2 if you score second, and the person with the lowest score at the end ends up winning the Emmy. Who's not going to have Anna Gunn in their top 2 or 3 positions? Like, if you're watching the tapes, you're probably going to put her high. Yeah, if you're not watching the tapes, you're probably still going to put her high because there's so much goodwill for Breaking Bad. You know, someone might prefer Christina Baranski's tape, but I think most will prefer. Like, it just seems like on every level, Anna Gunn's got this. But we know the Emmys like to throw us curveballs, and
they sure do.
Just when we think we know what we're talking about, the Emmys will surprise us on the night. So I'm not counting my chickens, but it'd be hard to not predict Anna Gunn.
Marcus, I love Breaking Bad. Dixon, tell me, Anna Gunn, tell me why.
Yeah, I did a write-up for this one. I did the pros and cons for why she would win, and I want to give a shout-out to Dylan Tucker from our forums. He kind of said, your cons on Anna Gunn are kind of weak. And I'm like, well, because she doesn't really have any cons, and let's be honest. There was one I came up with where over the past 12 years in this category, only one actress has won twice. And that was Blythe Danner for Huff, and that was like 2005, 2006. Maggie Smith, won 2 times for Downton Abbey, but one was when it was a miniseries and only one when it was a drama series. So I think that is kind of important to remember that in this category in particular, the voters like to spread the wealth. They like to give it to someone new every year. And that could come into play here, but probably not. I mean, what you all mentioned is just, it's good. The episode itself is fantastic, so that helps her. And I don't think we mentioned the flashback yet. In the beginning, it opens with the flashback of her at the beginning of the Breaking Bad timeline, before everything went downhill. And she's smiling and she's happy, and her and Walter are talking about naming their baby Holly. And then a half hour later, she's a completely different person. And Anna Gunn really sells that transformation. And so it's not really a Tatiana Maslany type thing where she's playing different characters, but in a way she is. She's playing pre-Breaking Bad Skylar and then post-Breaking Bad Skylar. And those are really different versions of herself. And someone else talk. She has this.
Daniel, can you inject any cynicism about her, or are you on the same boat?
Well, I don't know about cynicism. I will say that, when I watch these episodes, I'd seen almost all of them when they originally aired, so when I watched them, I skim for the scenes, and I imagine a lot of, in this digital age, a lot of voters are doing the same if they're watching them at all. After that original scene, that initial scene, that flashback scene, she's off screen for about 20 to 25 minutes. I mean, after that, it's all Walt and in the desert trying to save his brother-in-law, and that goes on, and then you see Skylar come back. But that's really the only negative I can think of against this competition, because if she has a screen time problem, she has a much less of a screen time problem than the other 5 women in this category. She has more impact than the other 5 women in this category. She has more range, not only the flashback scene, But she also has that scene with her sister where she's sort of stricken, and it's a quiet scene, and it's a tearful scene. And then she goes ballistic in the scene with Walter and the knife. So she has that range. We know that she can beat this competition. You know, Christine Baranski and Maggie Smith have that powerful name recognition, but she beat them both last year. And 51 wasn't even in bold and broad a showcase as this one is for her. Add to that the fact that Breaking Bad is such a sensation this season. So even if you're not watching the episodes, as has been mentioned already, you're probably going to rank her top 3 at least. You know, everything is working in her favor. So I hesitate to call anything a lock at the Emmys because we know what happens when we do that. But every factor we can possibly weigh, it really supports an Anna Gunn win.
Charlie, do you agree?
Absolutely. This is just one of the most finely crafted pieces of television. This single episode of in the longest time I can remember. It's no wonder that the creator of the show, Vince Gilligan, actually said that his favorite episode of Breaking Bad is this episode. She also has. There's also this amazing scene where Walt calls her towards the end, and he tries to set it up, making it look like she's the victim in the whole thing. She was never an accomplice, and just the way and it's not just her, but also Bryan Cranston. The way both of them play it is just amazing to watch. It's out of this world, and I really she's the closest thing that I'd be comfortable to saying is a lock.
Yeah. I mean, I will just say that they do love to throw us curveballs, and those inexplicable wins, like what I think Marcus mentioned, Blythe Danner winning that second time, that was really unexpected because her episode, I recall, she was barely in it. And Merritt Weaver last year, some of us thought she had a shot, but really that win was a surprise. And, it could happen again this time. We think Anna Gunn is way out in front, but they may want to spread the wealth. They may think someone else is more overdue. And if that happens, there will be quite a few surprise faces, I suppose. Now, we do have to wrap up because we're kind of running out of time. But everybody watching this, you should go and fill in your dream Emmy ballot. And so let's do the same thing. I suppose we're all going to put Anna Gunn as our winner. I certainly am. But if Anna Gunn didn't exist in the category, I would be voting for Christine Baranski. So I would like to know, all of you, confirm whether you're voting for Anna Gunn, and if she didn't exist, who would you give this Emmy to? I'll go down the line. Charlie first.
Yeah, I'm voting for Gunn.
And if no Anna Gunn?
And if not, oh God, don't make me think of these alternate universes, man. That's just not fair.
Not too hard.
I'd probably vote for Christine Baranski.
Daniel?
Anna Gunn would be my choice to win. If I had my personal say, if there were no Anna Gunn, I probably wouldn't even pick any of these other 5 women who were actually nominated. I think one of my favorite performances of the last year was Melissa McBride from The Walking Dead, and if anyone had an episode that could have challenged Anna Gunn, it might have been her.
Okay, Marcus?
I just want to say one thing real quick. Last night I watched last year's Slugfest that we did for Comedy Supporting Actress. And at the end, Rob, you said if Merritt Weaver wins, that you will get up and do the twerk. So I think we're all still waiting for that. Maybe you'll do that
I will, I promise.
Next Slugfest.
Next time, I promise.
If Anna Gunn wasn't here, I would like to see her co-star Betsy Branch. She was phenomenal on this episode as well as overall. And one extra thing about Smith and Froggatt is that voters can see them on each other's episodes. And we didn't really talk about that, but I was paying attention to that when I watched it, and they really don't help each other. Like in Froggatt's episode, Smith only has like one quick scene, and then in Smith's 2-hour episode, Froggatt really doesn't do a lot either. So usually that's a factor, but I don't know if it'll be a factor this year for those two. Okay, I'm done talking.
Matt.
Yeah, I'd vote Anna Gunn from this lineup, and it probably would be Christine Baranski in second from these nominees. I do think Williams, who played Arya on Game of Thrones, had a killer season. If she was nominated, I would consider voting for her. And, you know, Lena Headey had a great season on Game of Thrones too. But I think I'd go with Christine Baranski, if not Anna Gunn. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I must say, if Bellamy Young from Scandal wasn't nominated, I know that some of you have issues with that show, but she really was a breakout from Scandal. And if she was nominated, she would have had a very competitive tape, so I probably would have also given it to her, and I just had to throw that out there. All right, everybody.
She's nominated on the Dream ballot, Rob.
She is. Oh, there you go. I completely forgot about that. Well,
yeah.
I will throw her a bone because she didn't get that Emmy nomination that she so richly deserved. But really, Anna Gunn, you better get your speech prepared because it looks like you are going to win your second Emmy, and well deserved. But we'll see what happens. You never know. The Emmy voters love toying with us. And guys, thank you so much for your time today. We will continue watching episodes. We will be working day and night to get them watched and reviewed for you all so that you can make up your mind of how to vote and how to predict these awards in the lead up to the Emmys. Guys, see you soon. Thanks again. Take care.